searching for higher ground today, maybe a little bit of extra terrain compared to the smooth stuff down low. I'll be testing today the Mammut Aenergy Trail Endurance Ultra and also the all mountain model. The Swiss brand Mammut, more well known for their mountaineering type shoes, gear, and apparel, is making their entry into the trail running market in 2026. I hope you caught my comparison video with the Speed model versus the Salomon S-Lab Pulsar 4. I do have that one back at the van for a little post-run model roundup, but today I am focusing on the middle distance and, as aptly named, ultra distance, endurance ultra, and all mountain models here. Training wise, I'm looking for kind of a moderate distance, not long run today. I didn't want to go back to the van and do some loops to change the shoes. Luckily, I have this UltrAspire Traverse Hydration Pack in for test. I am starting off here in the Endurance Ultra, and I have the all mountain model stashed away in my 20-liter Traverse pack. I am running through a bit of chunky stuff underfoot here. Some kind of larger size gravel here and there that is the type that can get through to your foot over the course of a longer run. The Endurance Ultra does have plenty underfoot to soak that up. You're working with a 30 millimeter stack that is measured, specified 8mm drop. They have a combination midsole in this model, AE Core Plus, which is a nitrogen infused supercritical EVA, and up front you've got AE Core Ultra, which is an ETPU foam for a little bit more bounce and softness up front in the forefoot. You've also got a Flextron Pro Pebax polymer plate in here, fork design, split up front and under the heel, similar to what you find in the Speed model, but notably not in the all mountain model, which I will talk about later. The plate does look to be a little bit wider though than the Speed model, and I definitely notice a little bit less flex, a little bit more stiffness here in the Endurance Ultra. But still, with that bit of inherent stiffness of the midsole, the ETPU here, I wouldn't say is of the super bouncy variety. Definitely is a little bit softer under the forefoot, very comfortable, but I just found more like of a deep level of cushioning here. Not a lot of squish into this midsole here, just enough to avoid a firmness of feel. So again, a little bit of stiffness, lack of flexibility overall. That does tend to be a characteristic of alpine design shoes. They tend to keep the mid to rear of the shoe relatively stable for that rocky terrain. The ETPU up front, again, does soften the blow a little bit without being overly bouncy, or I would say even bouncy at all. The shoe is also a little bit on the heavy side. I've got 12 ounces in my US 10.5 EU 44. With this shoe, it was really the stiffness that stood out to me straight out of the box compared to the Speed model, both having those Flextron plates. This one just felt so much less flexible straight out of the box compared to that one. But as I have been adding some test miles in this one, it definitely has opened up a bit. I was feeling a little bit of tension in the Achilles and lower legs, especially in that very first run, even maybe a second run, but a few more runs in now, and it definitely seems to flex a little bit more than they did initially. I'm running primarily uphill since I started this run today and feeling much more comfortable on the run. With Mammut being a Swiss brand, it's more of that European style ride, firmer type of midsole foam here for those that are in that type of rocky alpine terrain. You don't always want that, say, Hoka softness underfoot. You want to have a little bit more control, a little bit more feel, and I think runners out there just tend to be more used to a firmer ride than maybe some of us over here stateside. Mammut's materials do mention that Flextron plate should add a bit of, say, lateral flexibility. I don't necessarily find that to be the case. It does feel a little bit stiff again laterally, so you want to be careful stepping on those rocks and stuff. It is going to tend to tip a little bit. I don't feel like it has that much lateral flexibility as some of the materials would imply, but you are getting a lot of protection here. Anything that I'm stepping on here, damn, that was pretty sharp. I'm pretty much not feeling anything getting through to my feet here, which is really great. Really what you want in some of those kind of alpine conditions. Funny enough, I did get a direct message on Instagram from Running Chris. Found the reviews pretty helpful in finding shoes that were really working for him. But he said, even though I am not running in as technical terrain as they have in the south of Germany where he's located. Now, as you may or may not know, my wife is from the south of Germany, Bavaria. I have run the Chiemgauer 100 miler, my very first 100 miler. In fact, also Großglockner over in Austria a couple of years ago. So I just have access to kind of smoother trails that you might see more frequently in my videos, just because I can hit that stuff up literally running from my door. But I can go a little higher when I need to test in varied conditions, and I do have something of an idea of that kind of terrain. I did start my trail running journey out in New Jersey, Beast Coast, so I know what to do and I know what I need to prepare myself for when the time comes. I have this one in a US 10.5, as I said. They sent me this one in a larger size because we're talking about me liking a little bit more space in my distance kind of shoes. I have a full thumbs width up front here, so this is one of their wider lasts. This one and the All Mountain both have a wider last. I have this one in a 10. EU 43 and a third, 10.5 EU 44 here. I do believe that this toe box is a little bit tapered though. I'm not going to switch right now. I'm going to run a little bit more before I switch. This one has a little bit narrower toe box, but is totally comfortable for me. So I think I should, in actuality, also have a US 10 here, 43 and a third here, because a full thumbs width is pretty good. I'm not having any issues with foot security. One thing I have to point out is I do have to double knot the laces. I found in all three of the shoes, especially noticing it in this one, they have a little different tongue construction here. The laces are a little bit slippery, so once I started double knotting my laces here, I didn't have any of that issues with foot security. Definitely well held here, even at perhaps a little bit big of a size here. So I would say they're true to size as far as, say, ultra sizing. Typically, I would say I'm a 9.5 US. In a 10 here, I'll have just a touch less than a full thumbs width. So got a little extra here, but with the secure fit, it's pretty much okay. Definitely more rounded here. I could feel it inside the shoe. It's not just the sizing here. Very comfortable upper here. I like the tongue in this one. It's well padded. Have a little bit of shaping here to avoid any kind of irritation there. You got a different kind of clamshell setup here. This is similar to the Prodigio Pro, but it's a little bit softer. It's very soft and very light, in fact. I thought this would be okay, but I don't know. It just seems a little too soft, and I was noticing it with the laces coming loose. I wasn't sure if it was the tongue or the laces. I think it's more so the laces, but this one seems to be more padded, and I just like the feel of this one a little bit more. It's just more comfortable. I think this is a little bit more finicky of a design here. You've also got different collar constructions here compared to the Speed model. I talked about that Speed model having a little bit of a band. I believe it was my left ankle here that was rubbing. You have a more traditional inner padding here, well padded. I don't have any issues with this shoe or the All Mountain. The All Mountain does have a similar kind of banding setup.
They have different types of bolsters on the inside. All three shoes are just like slight different variations of little different elements throughout. Maybe they're just trying to kind of work out what works best in this kind of first model lineup release here. This has the traditional padding, a little bit less in the Speed. This has some inner bolsters, one up top here, two along the edges. Again, this is the all mountain model here, and it has that similar kind of band around the edge here. But in looking at the three shoes, I feel like your foot sits deeper. I'm gonna take a closer look when I get back. Your foot sits deeper in the Speed model, not these two. So I don't get the irritation of this band along my ankle bone as I did get in the Speed. When I look at the Speed, your foot is so deep inside the shoe, deeper in fact than both of these, that this just seems to hit a little higher. That's something I just recently noticed after filming that video and then running some more in these shoes. So I find the collars here on the All Mountain and the Endurance Ultra to be no issue at all, where I did have that kind of bit of irritation towards the end of a longer run in the Speed model. Also a bit of difference in the upper design here. You have a full interior liner here. You could kind of see it. It's a black liner throughout the toe box here. Mesh on the outside here with the liner in there, similar to a few other shoes, Alta Mesa, Prodigio Pro, a few others that aren't coming to mind. This one's a little bit different though. You can probably tell it's an open mesh here, so the tongue is kind of sealed up around here, and you don't have that inner liner. You may be able to see my fingers through there. So this is gonna let a little bit more air in and out, probably hold a little bit less water on the run, whereas this, they have the full liner. It gives a little bit of comfort, I would say, but I'm not so sure about that. I kind of like to have it open like this and less chance of holding water and inhibiting breathability. You have a large gusset here in this All Mountain model, pretty much from here to here. But again, this is just open down here.
The Endurance Ultra is definitely a model that is growing on me. I would say straight off the bat, it was my least favorite. I really like the Speed straight out of the box. All Mountain was kind of in the middle, but just did not like the weight of this model, the stiffness underfoot. But this is one that seems to have opened up over time. I still think it can be a little unstable on downhills. Of course, with that stiffness, sometimes when climbing, it could feel like it's putting a little more strain on the Achilles and lower legs. But again, I feel like it's gotten a little bit more flexible. And now that I've discovered that the lacing was a little bit slippery, the laces were a little bit slippery. In fact, now that I've got that heel locked in, it's definitely climbing better and having a more secure fit. Gonna work my way across here, down there, and around that hill, switch at the bottom there into the All Mountain. I think if you're watching this over there in Europe, this is probably gonna be a model that's more appealing in that alpine terrain over there, perhaps in some more mountainous, rocky areas of the US as well. It strikes me as being along the lines of some of the models from Lowa, perhaps Scarpa. Spin Ultra 2 I've run in has that similar kind of design with the stiffness and protection in the middle and rear of the shoe, and nice secure fit for alpine terrain. Difference here being that Spin Ultra 2 has quite a narrow toe box there. Definitely squeezed up front in equal to US 10. Do have a 10.5 here again, but even with the 10, got a much more rounded toe box here. The wide last, I think, is definitely more comfortable for those endurance ultra miles. Working my way here, bit of a descent. I find that 8 mil drop nice and smooth. I can definitely feel the heel being a little bit elevated, but doesn't feel super steep. Got a nice little gradual ramp down to the forefoot, which I find quite comfortable. I am going to talk about a little bit of a difference there with the All Mountain model in a second. Also the plate here, and big stack 3830 measured without it being overly soft. Very kind of absorptive, I would say, on the downhill. I'm not actually going to run AB today. This one, the All Mountain, is spec'd at 34.26. This one is spec'd at 38.30, but I'm going to check my measurements. I do have this one actually measured a little bit lower, so there's just a large difference in feel underfoot between these shoes. Too large to, in fact, run side by side. Also got the plate in this one, 2 foams. You only have the Nitro EVA here, none of the TPU up front, and again, no plate, so they're just quite different shoes. Yeah, there's a little something about this tongue here. I find that moves around a little. I think it's a little bit too soft. Got this one centered pretty okay, but then this one kind of twisted off to the side on me. I think it could be something to do because this is also a little bit slippery material too, the fabric of the tongue itself, and on top of the laces, they're just a little bit kind of slidey. They slide too easily. I heard they're fixing this definitely for the next round and potentially in line, so for now I'm definitely gonna double knot these here. One thing about this shoe, peculiarity in feel that I noticed right away, is it does have the same 8mm drop as the Endurance Ultra, but I find this is more steady, more gradual. I don't notice any kind of high points underneath the foot. It's very comfortable. This one, for some reason, I kind of feel a ridge somewhere, and it's crosswise across the middle of the foot here. It feels kind of weird. I definitely want to have the ankle snugged in. I don't really tighten it down too much. Again, I have a half size down from this one, and I still have almost the full thumbs, a little bit less there. Just underfoot, I could definitely feel it. There's some type of prominence going crosswise, a transition from, I don't know what, there's no plate in here, the foam is uniform, but somewhere along the way, in the transition from the heel to the forefoot, somewhere in here, there's some kind of ridge in there, and I feel it crosswise across my foot. At times can be quite uncomfortable. Well, let's see how it feels today, but I've definitely noticed on every single run that feeling. This Traverse Pack from UltrAspire is great, by the way. I'm carrying an extra pair of shoes, got my bottles up front, little camera knickknacks here and there. So let me put the gels in there. Also the drone in the back pocket. Just super solid, super stable. It's definitely bigger vest, higher capacity, 20 compared to 14 in the Zygos here. And it's just really solid. I think maybe I'll do more of these runs where I carry my shoes with me. I will be doing a full review at some point, so I don't get into too many details today, but figured it's handy for this run. One thing I will talk about is the kind of orientation of the panels, a little bit straighter than Zygos. Zygos kind of flared out at the bottom. This is more straight here. Got these large zip pockets on the chest here. Sweat proof, those are great. 2 zip pockets up here. The front panels here on the Traverse are also a little bit longer. You can get those full 800 milliliter soft flasks in there without any issue. Zygos had that kind of little curve to get them all the way in there. You couldn't really, you had to angle them in there to really fit them. I have the 16s right now, but I definitely tested 2 800s easily up front here. Plus, of course, you got the bladder compartment in the back, insulated. I do have these All Mountain measured at 30 at the heel with an 8mm drop. That puts it at 30.22 compared to the 34.26 which is specified and even listed on the insole of the shoe. I also curiously measured the Speed model 4 mil lower than the spec. That one I had at 2620, a little lower drop there, 6 millimeters. But from the Speed to here, you only have 2 millimeters more under the forefoot and no plate in this shoe. That was something I did find to be a bit curious. It definitely feels the thinnest and least protective of the three models, especially under the forefoot. 22 mil, quite thin there, and it is called the all mountain model, so it just seems a little bit of a mismatch to me in terms of protection. This is definitely the model of the three where I feel a lot of these rocks poking up to my forefoot. The Endurance Ultra just has a ton of cushion, and the Speed, even though it's 2 mil less under the forefoot, the plate does seem to add a level of protection. I feel a little bit more insulated from rocks poking through in that lighter weight model than this all mountain one here. With this model being the one of the three without the Flextron plate, it's definitely more flexible underfoot. I can feel that, but I feel like the expense of lack of protection is just too much in this model here. The Speed model, that plate was, again, I think it's narrower. It surely is narrower than the one in the Endurance Ultra, but that one flexed, I would say, just as much as this model here. This one, plenty flexible, but I think they'll need the plate in here. They could have put it in here or even kept the 6 mil drop in this model a little bit more under the forefoot, and also smooth out that bit of prominence between the heel and the forefoot in this shoe. Climbing is no issue. You can generally, at slower paces here, spot where you're placing your feet, kind of avoid those sharp hits. It's when I come back down here where I'm going to be a little bit more careful to avoid a lot of those. Could head a bit further up, but I think I'm going to be covering the same kind of terrain I was just running in, at least a little bit down here. Going to head back down, be careful of the rocks down here. It's definitely, I don't know, this is, I think, the odd duck of the lineup, the all mountain model here. It just feels not as protective as I would want under the forefoot. I've had a lot of discussion recently testing the ACG Ultrafly Trail with prominence under the middle of the foot. That one, it's the carbon fiber plate that seems to push like lengthwise through the middle of the foot. This one, something with it. There's no plate, which is interesting, but it seems to be across the foot. There's a transition somewhere in the middle of the shoe that just seems to be uneven. There's kind of like, I feel a little under the foot here, and then there's like a little bit of a dip or drop off somewhere in the footbed where it just makes this more prominent, again, across the foot, which is definitely kind of weird. Also, as I'm coming up here, and certainly more as I head back down, I don't like this tongue setup. It's a little too soft. It seems to just give a little bit more movement or less feel of security compared to even the Endurance Ultra, which is a heavier shoe. This one's 10.4 ounces. That one was a 12-ounce shoe, but it did feel like with the tongue being more kind of sturdy or regular without this really squishy kind of bolsters along lengthwise of the tongue here. I just feel a little bit more kind of loose in this shoe, and a lighter all mountain shoe I'd really want to feel dialed in, kind of like I feel in the Speed, and I'm just like not quite getting it in this model. And then again, with the lack of protection, I just don't feel totally comfortable, you know, if I'm going to be going down through rocks like this, or you're in alpine terrain and you have even more of this stuff that is perhaps less avoidable than I can here today. You don't want to be hitting this guy in the middle of the forefoot in this shoe, that's for sure. So go around this bend here, on down, and then I'm going to zip down through that valley there, and make a right turn back to the van. Yeah, there's a looseness of feel over the top of the foot here. I think it's really that tongue which is causing it. I noticed it right away as soon as I turned around, feeling not as much security foothold over the top of the foot as I would want. Heading down here, for one thing, having to be careful with these rocks, and also, yeah, I'm feeling even a little bit of foot sliding in this shoe, and I did try to really snug them down here. I think it's just hard with the laces and those bolsters on the tongue to really get the right kind of dial down that you want to have for, say, fast descents. Yeah, I'm feeling these rocks under the forefoot for sure. Still heading down here, just something popped in my mind. It may sound a little bit weird. The shoe gives me Chirac 01 vibes, not due to the weight, of course, but due to the fact that it does have a somewhat wide forefoot. Again, wide last here, shared with the Endurance Ultra. The Speed model has narrower last. But across the forefoot, it's wide. It does taper up front more so than the Chirac 01, but that same minimal feeling under the forefoot, I have to remember what that was, put it up on a screen. It might be close to 22 under the forefoot here in this model with that normal shoe, but the normal shoe has a lesser drop, none of that kind of prominence in the middle of the shoe. It definitely feels like a more balanced shoe. The heel does feel a little higher in this one. I really do think that if they did want to have this be a more minimal feeling shoe as an all mountain model, if that was the intention, I think they should have been going with a 6 mil drop here. It would eliminate that steepness, even take some pressure off the forefoot. It would probably eliminate a lot of that prominence in the middle and also make the forefoot feel less relatively thin, at least. I do think there's a solid 2 models here, at least to start with the Endurance Ultra and the Speed model. I feel like you can get what you have in this shoe with the Speed model, with the exception of perhaps the wider last. You do have a narrower fit in the Speed, so if that was too tight for some runners, then perhaps you would look to this model. But again, you're lacking protection, and I just don't think the shoe is as well set up as that Speed model. I would like to see the Speed model at least the front of the toe box maybe straightened out a bit, a little less taper up front there, and then you would have even more overlap with this model here. You wouldn't have any issues with narrowness, because I do think the forefoot is okay in that shoe. I mean, not designed for wide feet, but it is certainly doable, aside from, again, the very front with the pointiness there. Hitting a little bit of sandy sections here on my way back. This is actually where this shoe feels better, even though it is called the all mountain model. It definitely feels better. You don't have to worry about the protection in less rocky terrain. Covering a few more rocky bits here on the way back. I am doing so gingerly. All right, we're back. Got all 3 Mammut shoes here. Took the, where is it? All Mountain. This is the one I was just running in. I had the Endurance Ultra earlier in the run, and Energy Trail Speed. I talked about the ankle sitting a bit deep, or the foot sitting a bit deep in here. Let's see where my kind of hand is over here. I don't know if this is very scientific, but definitely seems to be lower in here. It's really up here. Yeah, I'm just looking inside of this shoe here. It's very deep. It's almost a sidewall effect here. You don't typically see that in these kind of low to the ground speed shoes here, but yeah, you're definitely deeper compared to these models. You do have a 6 mil drop here. You have an 8 here, so perhaps an extra 2 mil higher in the heel of these models was not accounted for in terms of maybe lowering this a little bit. Again, I had that irritation of the band. I believe it was the other shoe, the left shoe. This was just up on my ankle bone in a way that it is not in these other models. Quick look at the outsoles here. You've got Vibram Mega Grip light base on both of these models, Endurance Ultra and here. Traction lugs here with the Endurance Ultra. You can see the issue here very clearly with the, not a big fan of this. Similar, no, this is the Speed model, but again, I thought I had the All Mountain one. This is the one I was running in. It has a similar cutout in the All Mountain one here, but I think it's a little bit shallower. I didn't pick up anything today, but I still have these left over in the Speed model. Yeah, it is, that cutout is a little deeper in the Speed model, so I might need a screwdriver to get that one out. That one's wedged in there pretty good. You might get some stuff if you find the right size in this All Mountain model. Even smaller cutout in the Endurance Ultra, so that shouldn't be an issue there. This is definitely a heftier shoe, 12 ounces, 10.4 here with the All Mountain, and then you're a little bit above 9 here with the Speed model. I think these are gonna be your best models here. Again, looking at the lasts, they have wide lasts with the outer models here. The Endurance Ultra, All Mountain, definitely noticeable at the forefoot. I think it's actually okay, as I was talking about in the Speed model, at the forefoot here. It's just very pointy up front here. I think they could, without any issue or without losing anything, just widen this out just a touch. That might bring it to have some overlap with the All Mountain model. I was talking about this one on the way back. I just struggle, you know, with this shoe more so than the other ones. Perhaps they just wanted to make it a little bit different. Of the three, this is one that does not have the Vibram Mega Grip. It has Mammut's in-house rubber here. You've got 4mm lugs with both of the higher stack models. I believe this is a little bit lower. This looks to be 3 or 3.5 in the Speed model here. I didn't notice any issues with traction or grip with any of the models. So the Mammut rubber seems to be just as good, but curiously, this just seems to be the odd model in a few different ways. The Speed and the Endurance Ultra have the plates in them. They also have, I would say, better tongue designs. This is a booty design in the Speed here, but the tongue just, it's a nicer tongue. You have more padding in here. You have the, this is a booty design, a little bit different padding in here. You just kind of have like weird soft padding inside the heel in the All Mountain, and this clamshell tongue, which is just very soft. I don't have the Prodigio Pro with me for comparison. That has a more stiff and I would say sturdy clamshell design, and it doesn't seem to deform under tension on the run. This one, I try to like lock it down, but it seems to, the laces just seem to like squish into these pads here, and I don't overall get a good fit. So again, no plate here, no Vibram. Maybe they just wanted to play around with a minimal design here, less feel. This one, even being lower the Speed, it does feel more protective with the plate in there, and being lighter, I feel more agile, more able to move around and even avoid stuff if I need to in this shoe. I don't quite have that in this shoe. Again, with the looseness, something going on with this upper over here, this tongue over here, just not quite holding the foot as well as I would like. So I would recommend the Endurance Ultra or the Trail Speed model here. These are the two that I would go for, and perhaps this one may need a little bit of refinement in the next round. I have another shoe here, or a couple shoes here, Adidas TT. Not exactly close comparisons. It's funny because when I got these three shoes, I thought that I would like the All Mountain the best. The specs kind of seemed pretty good, and I thought, I knew this one was heavy, and I knew this one was kind of narrowish, and I just thought this would be better, but it just doesn't seem to be as well executed as the other shoes. I feel like the TT here is kind of like in the middle here. I feel like this is the model that could be between these two. It has the rock plate. It has, I would say, a firmer feel, kind of similar to this one, a little bit of stiffness to it in the middle here, but this is quite flexible up front. I still have to put more test miles in this one. As I'm running in this one, I brought this along because I have the sense that perhaps this is like an upgraded model of this one here. Let me do a quick flex here. Again, this one has no plate, so just extreme flex, almost maybe too much here. Certainly the lack of protection under here. Speed model here. It is very flexible for having that P-Bax polymer plate in there for sure, but I could tell a little bit more tension in this one. And the Endurance Ultra here definitely stiffer from here to here, especially the first steps out of the box. Again, has loosened up over my test runs here. Like from here to here, it just feels quite flat on the ground. The first run, I would go so far as to call it a clunky feeling, but it has opened up. It has gained some flexibility over my test running. So with this one, if you happen to get it, I would recommend waiting for some break in time before you make any snap judgments on this one. You could see there's a wider plate in this model than the Speed model, but it still has good flexibility, and this is by far the most protective of these shoes. If you want like a, and you're not minding the weight, say 12 ounces, but you want to be fully protected in rocky alpine terrain, this is a great model. Speaking of that, I've got the Lowa Skyterra on my feet here. This is a brand Lowa. They know something about alpine terrain. Check out my review of the Amplux Gore-Tex model. That is a much thinner model, perhaps closer to the Speed model. It has somewhat pointier toe box, similar width around the forefoot, but I really like the lockdown of that Amplux shoe. Kind of a stiffer feel under the forefoot with that rock protection plate or whatever they call it in there. Very nice shoe. This one is more of a built-up kind of endurance shoe, kind of heavyweight. I haven't run in this shoe yet, but do a quick flex here. It feels even a little bit stiffer than the Endurance Ultra here, but perhaps this will also kind of break in with time. So I see this as a comparable model to this one right here. Look out for testing of this one on the channel in the near future. Again, I haven't run in this yet. I just, you know, European brands had this one in mind. So thank you for tuning in once again to Humble Running. If you've got any questions, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. And Gorewear decked out today. Got about a month to go as of the time you're watching this video. Use my discount code to save yourself 15%. The sales may be even deeper right now. I see a lot of you using the code, saving some money. I actually bought another pair of these shorts myself and this same exact hoodie in black. So I'm probably gonna do another Gorewear specific roundup in the near future, but don't wait for that. If you wanna secure your size, check them out right now. I will see you next time out on the trails.